The state of New Mexico is suing the Department of Justice and the soon-to-be official Attorney General Todd Blanche, arguing that the federal government blocked the state's ability to investigate the sex crimes of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein at a ranch there. Epstein owned property in New Mexico. Dave Aronberg, talk to us about this matter. Does it seems to be yet another example of the Trump administration sort of getting in the way of Epstein-related matters. Do you think that the state here has solid legal grounds?
I do, Jonathan. The Attorney General of New Mexico, Torres, was forced to sue DOJ because they refused to hand over unredacted evidence involving potential crimes at Zorro Ranch. Now, the Epstein files reportedly contain around 13,000 references to Zorro Ranch, but the feds are saying, well, victim identities are in there and they're confidential. But New Mexico is not asking the DOJ to publish victims' names on the internet. They're seeking confidential law enforcement to law enforcement access to state, so that state investigators can figure out what happened in New Mexico and decide whether anyone can still be prosecuted. Remember, the DOJ has already allowed all 535 members of Congress to see unredacted material. So if they could all see it, why can't an attorney general who could actually bring charges see it? And protecting victims, that means shielding their identities from the public. It doesn't mean hiding them from prosecutors. And New Mexico has a legitimate legal grievance here because it had an understanding with the feds back in 2019. See, New Mexico agreed to stand down on its own investigation and turn its entire file over to the feds. In return, the feds agreed to pass along any evidence of state crimes they uncovered. But instead, the feds took New Mexico's evidence and then just ghosted them. And we saw similar stonewalling in Minnesota. That's when the feds were stonewalling the production of documents involving the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. So the litigation worked then in Minnesota, and it's going to work here in New Mexico. And one last thing, when I was state attorney, we always had an excellent working relationship with the feds, but we're living in a new era, and the long-held conservative philosophy of states' rights no longer exists, apparently, when the states are run by Democrats.
Yeah, so Lisa, look, we understand there's certain privacy issues, of course, when victims' names are involved. But it does seem like there's just a lot of Epstein-related materials that the Trump DOJ has simply decided we're never going to put out, despite what the courts might say, despite what a law passed by Congress might say.
And look, there's ongoing litigation about publishing in the public domain some of these unredacted files. That's litigation that the independent journalist and our former colleague, Katie Phang, is bringing against the government. That's still ongoing. In that case, you had at least one victim come forward and say, if these files are published, I want to make sure my name is never published. I don't support that. But here, with respect to Raul Torres' lawsuit, just notice that you have not seen any survivors, their lawyers, or other advocates come forward and say, this is a bad idea. That is likely because survivors and their advocates are cooperative with Raul Torres' investigation. They want to see it go forward. And the kind of request that he's made to the Southern District of New York and the Department of Justice writ large, it's a traditional kind of request. Dave is totally right. It's called a TUI request. Localities and states make it all the time in these sharing arrangements with DOJ. The legal theory here is a novel one. They're saying this is a final agency action, that Todd Blanche and the DOJ are acting in an arbitrary and capricious way by withholding these files. Whether they'll succeed in this civil lawsuit remains to be seen, but Raul Torres really should be given a round of applause by people who want to see justice for the Epstein survivors for trying to think outside the box about how he's going to get evidence that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to him.
One last quick headline. On Friday, a federal appeals court ruled that the administration must stop construction of President Trump's much-wished-for ballroom because Congress has not approved the project. Trump then, in his Truth Social post complaining about this, really deemed it, suggested it was more of a security center than a ballroom, which is him trying to change the goalpost. Lisa, your quick thoughts.
What the judges have done here in this 2-1 decision is not block any of the underground construction that's aimed at shoring up the security of the White House edifice. That's a red herring. Trump is misinterpreting the decision purposefully so. That said, he's going to go to the Supreme Court and try and get a ruling about the further construction of the ballroom, because what's done is done. Anybody who's visited Washington can see all the cranes in the airs, the holes in the ground. And whether or not an appeals court says he is entitled to continue to construct the ballroom, we all as a nation are going to have to deal with the fallout of the picture that we're showing on the screen right now.
It's every time we see that, it takes my breath away. MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin and former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Aronberg. Our thanks to you both. We appreciate it.